Unusually for a Ferrari launch, we're in Ireland and we're in West Cork, beautiful Bantry. We're spending a few days driving around these roads in this car. It's the new Roma Spider. Now, we've driven the Ferrari Roma before, we're quite used to it. This is very similar, but obviously with the roof that comes down. People love Spiders, Ferrari Spiders in particular. Let's have a little look around it. One of the defining features of the Ferrari Roma, of course, is this egg crate grille. It's in body colour down here. It's really distinctive. You can tell the car from miles away. Otherwise, it's a quite compact roadster and it's very, very sleek. I think it particularly suits the open roof look. This car has beautiful big red brake calipers here, they really stick out. But the rest of the side and the flanks is quite smooth. You can see the door handle here is really, really smooth, and it's got this beautiful rising waistline as well. Now, if you come around to the back, one major thing about the original Roma, the Roma Coupe, was the aerodynamics. Ferrari hid the aerodynamics, if you like, but yet it also is very efficient in that way. And the Spider gets its own take on that. Under here is a special spoiler. It has 3 different settings for different levels of downforce, so reducing lift. And as you'll see when I'm out driving it in a while, you don't really feel it at work, and that's the beauty of it. One feature I really like, and I think the back is the best aspect of this car, is these 4 exhaust outlets. These are actually tactile. They're unusual. It's hard to describe on camera, but they're nice to touch, bizarrely, I know. And they look good. They've got this matte effect and really detailed interior as well. It's just a level of detail in the design that you don't get in every brand. Elsewhere at the back, we have these 4 lights, which is a modern take on the traditional 4 rear lights of a Ferrari, and it's seen on their other cars as well. I love the rear view, basically. The roof. It's worth talking a little bit about this roof. If you look a bit closer, it's actually a textured weave. It's like red and black. Now, I'll mention it when I'm driving as well. It goes up really quickly, down really quickly, about 13 seconds, and you can do that up to 60 kilometers an hour, and it looks really good up or down. The interior, of course, is where you spend all your time in a car, and the Ferrari Roma's interior is quite special. It's snug, I'll give you that, and the rear seats are that only in name. You should think of it as extra luggage, but nonetheless, it's beautifully trimmed. This is gorgeous leather. I love this color, this red. Up front, you have a flat bottom steering wheel, which is really nice to hold. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I'm driving. You've got the Manettino, which is changing the driving modes on the steering wheel, and a very driver-centric cockpit here. You're actually separated from the passenger quite a bit, so it makes the car feel more snug, feel more compact perhaps than it is, and it makes it feel special. Despite all that, I really do like this setup, the infotainment setup. It's got a touchscreen right in the center console here, which is quick to respond, very easy to use. It's not something Ferrari did amazingly forever, but it's doing it quite well now. And in front of the driver, you've got digital instruments. You've got the big yellow central tachometer, the rev counter, and that really, again, emphasizes that this is a Ferrari, and that's what you want when you're in a car like this. One last thing I want to point out here is this unusual panel. Now, this is actually a wind deflector. It's an unusual thing, isn't it? Obviously, you can't have it up and use the rear seats, but they're not really rear seats anyway, let's face it. And then, if you did want to, just push it down and latch it. Well, we've had a look around the new Roma Spider. Now, let's see if it drives like a proper Ferrari. It's an interesting one, the Roma. Some will see it as the entry-level Ferrari and, a lesser Ferrari, if you like. And it's definitely not designed to be as extreme and as sporty as some of the really high-performance models in the range. So it's a bit more of a GT car, perhaps, but it's still a sports car, and I think it's worth reiterating that. The driving modes are a big part of it, and we've done a load of driving. We drove all the way down from Castlemartyr in Cork all the way down to Bantry in Cork, and the roads aren't great, the road surfaces aren't great, and yet it's comfortable. It's fine, it's perfectly comfortable on these roads, and no real trouble with it at all. And that is partially because of these driving modes. So comfort, you have this Manettino here, and it's a digital Manettino actually, so the footage will show that. Comfort mode, everything's nice and cushy, it's soft, soft response to the accelerator pedal. If you have it in automatic, it's the 8-speed dual clutch gearbox here. If you have it in automatic, it softly changes gear. It doesn't let the revs go too high unless you put your foot all the way down. And there's even, if you press the Manettino, it's a bumpy road mode, so it softens out the damping even more. So it is even more capable of dealing with the road surfaces. However, discovered that the sport mode is far more enjoyable, and it opens up a whole new character to the car where it feels more alive, to be honest. And even at these kind of speeds, we're doing 100 kilometers an hour here, the roof's down, the windows up, and it's got this extra deflector back here. You can have a conversation in the car quite easily, to be honest. But anyway, back to the sport mode. Put into sport, and everything's just a little bit sharper, but still not uncomfortable actually. And you can still use the bumpy road mode for the damping if you really want to. I discovered then, if you actually select manual setting for the transmission here, it ramps up even further. So the gear shifts are snappier. You know, these paddles are glorious. There's carbon fiber paddles behind the wheel here, and it really responds quickly to input. There's a bit more of a burble and a pop. So I'm going to do that here now. So we change down a few gears. And it's instantaneous changing of the gears when you do that. And then when you change down, you get the extra little flare of the revs, of course, and match the revs, the engine revs and the speed. And it's a bit more satisfying. And actually, you end up just driving around in probably a lower gear than you need, theoretically, because you want to hear that V8. Now, it's twin turbocharged, but the response is awesome. There's huge response. The throttle pedal, as I said, is quite soft, and you need to push it quite far to get full performance. But actually, that just means it's easier to drive smoothly, to drive quickly. And when you're in around town, it makes it far easier to drive. You know, again, it's smooth. And that's what struck me today, this duality of personality that the car has. You know, people that just want a beautiful Ferrari to drive around, and you know, they're not interested in driving fast, they're not interested in performance cars as such, will love this. It's easy to drive, it's simple, and yet it's special. It still feels special in here. You've got this really sporty steering wheel, you've got this cockpit feel, it's low slung, and it has loads of performance, obviously. Now, the twin turbo V8, it produces 620 horsepower, which is a lot, and it does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.4 seconds. So it is not a slouch, and this is far from a junior Ferrari or entry-level car by any measure. So let's hear what it sounds like in sport mode. I'm in manual, change down, that's third, and here we go. See, that's a lot more urgent. You get this extra little blur in the exhaust, and it's just quite rewarding and satisfying from a childish point of view, perhaps, but you know, it's a car to be enjoyed. The rest of the driving controls live up to the Ferrari mystique, if you like. The steering is lovely, really sublime, direct, but it's smooth, it's linear, and the car is very easy to place. It's quite a wide car actually on these roads, but it's really easy to place. The brake pedal is so solid, it gives huge confidence in the stopping power. We've never tested it or got anywhere near it. Some would prefer the physical starter buttons of old in Ferraris, and I would as well, actually, to be honest, but this has got a touch-sensitive start pad here at the bottom of the steering wheel. The Valentino itself is still physical, but it points to digital settings, if you like, and above sport is the race setting. And actually, there's probably no reason to use that on the road. It's quite extreme, but it's designed more for lap times, actually, and this just isn't the kind of car you would bring on track. Even though it is very, very capable, it's just not designed for that, I guess. Especially not the Spider, roof down. When you put it back down into comfort, put it into automatic, you can drive for hours like this. Absolutely hours. And when the road turns a bit interesting, it's worth taking that way because it still feels like a Ferrari, it still sounds like a Ferrari. I find the interface of the Roma more intuitive than that of the likes of the Ferrari 296, to be honest. Nice big touchscreen here, very easy to use, and then big digital instruments. In the middle, you have this huge yellow rev counter, which is just fantastic. It really suits the character of the engine, to be honest. But it's practical too. I've got the map up in front of me here as well, and you have other information bits and pieces here, but it all works. It's all very, very clear and easy to see what you're looking at. Interestingly, I presume this is an optional steering wheel. It's got gear up change lights at the top of the rim as well. Well, we've been very lucky with the weather to have the roof down for this trip. It goes up and down fairly quickly. It's about 13 seconds or so. and you can put it up or down at up to 60 kilometers an hour, which is useful if you're in town and the rain starts coming down or something. It's a very slick operation, very slick roof. That deflector in the back here, that helps quite a bit. There's not much buffeting in here. Now I'm raising my voice to be heard, but it probably isn't really necessary. And the windows up, of course, they help. The up and down, there's two pieces here, the front and back, and you put them up and down individually. But let's face it, the Roma Spider in particular was designed with sunnier climes in mind than Southern Ireland. We just got a bit lucky with the weather today. As you'll have heard, it kind of does live up to the billing, doesn't it? On one hand, it's a comfortable cruise. You can spend all day in it, and then when you dial up the modes, it feels like what you expect a Ferrari to feel like. It's a sports car. It's got, you know, that 620 horsepower from that V8. It really goes. It sounds good. More than anything, however, one thing I'm taking away from this is how special the car feels, and I suspect that for most Ferrari buyers, that's actually the most important thing. Well, that's our first drive of the Roma Spider. Good fun. If you like what you saw, pop along to our website and you can read all about the Roma and all of its rivals. It's CompleteCar.ie, and it's a great resource for choosing your next new car.